So I'd like to introduce Olivier. Can you please put your hands together for Olivier? Brief introduction. So Olivier has spent over 20 years designing, building, and securing enterprise systems across 4 continents. From seed stage startups to multi-billion-dollar enterprises, from banks and government agencies to SaaS platforms and fintech, he's built and led security programs that enable growth rather than hinder it. As founder and CISO of WHC Services, he partners with organizations as principal security architect, fractional CISO, and DevSecOps lead. His engagements span board-level governance, hands-on architecture, AI security governance, and cultural transformation, helping teams strengthen their security posture, navigate regulatory complexity, and harness emerging technologies without compromising resilience. Olivier also achieved the highest score in the Oceania region on the December 2013 CISM examination and scored in the top 5% globally. Olivier draws on real-world experience to make complex security and technology topics accessible, whether speaking to a technical audience, a boardroom, or a group of early-stage founders. So please, again, help me welcome Olivier.
Thanks.
Let me help you with that. I think we need to jump a couple. Yeah.
That's the hardest part, getting started. All right, great. So thanks everyone for being here. Today we're going to talk about a couple of things, security and also specifically ISO 27001. And I'll try to make it interesting and explain to you why this is actually an important thing. Yeah? Is that good? Perfect. So let's jump right into that. So, I mean, we've covered this part. So originally from Switzerland, I lived in New Zealand for a long time. I'm also a Kiwi citizen, which also gives me ability to be here with you today as a PR in the country. I've been here a few years, and I've done a lot of stuff. We went through that. So first section, why security? So I think people hopefully have a bit of an idea of why security is important. If you read the news, you probably have read a lot of headlines around these things. But why it's important for startups in particular? So there's a few reasons. Like startups, obviously, they try to move fast. They don't have budgets. They try to cut corners, and it's absolutely fair enough to do so. But that also means that the risk is higher. And that also means that from an attacker's perspective, like startups can be a soft target, and they're interesting to try to exploit. And that's augmented greatly by AI. So we've talked about Mythos before, but even earlier AI models now are allowed to multiply the effectiveness and the size of these attacks. So it's not limited by the number of humans that you've been able to recruit to do attacks. It's just the number of agents that you can spin up. And that means now startups and everybody else is a target. Vibe coding as well. We've heard a few times talking about vibe coding. So a lot of these agents are good at writing code. It looks great, but like the nitty-gritty details of like securing stuff behind the scenes, that's not always there yet. So a lot of these vibe-coded applications are great on paper, and they look great, and they're perfect for a POC, but please, like, be mindful, Ahmed and others, like, do your due diligence and do your homework around securing these apps, because I've never seen a vibe-coded application that was production ready from a security standpoint. And finally, also, startups are interesting because the attackers might not be interested about you in particular, but your clients. And that means that you become basically a backdoor to whoever bigger clients that the attacker is actually interested in. Right? So that's why clients and bigger enterprises will look into your security maturity and what you do, and we'll talk about ISO after and why this is trying to address exactly this point. Couple examples going quickly. CodeSpaces, this happened some years ago. There was a startup. They were trying to do sort of a GitHub competitor, I guess. Attackers managed to go and get access to their AWS account, ransom them for money, obviously. The CodeSpace tried to gain access back to their AWS account. Attackers didn't like that. They basically torched the place before leaving, and CodeSpace went bankrupt immediately after that. There's no recovery from that. They deleted backups and everything. Another example here in Australia, MediSecure, so that happened like a couple of years ago. So same thing, they've been attacked. We don't have a lot of details about exactly what happened, phishing of some form. Then ransomware, the data got sold very quickly on the dark market, and then it was game over from there. Like just the cost of managing the incident alone basically killed the company. So these things like have direct consequences, and startups don't have the means and the resources to recover from that. So it might be a deadly blow for startups. So the main things that I recommend startups and clients I work with to look into are the following. So the phishing and any sort of social engineering attacks now is the rage. Like it's been augmented by AI. They can make really convincing emails, really convincing attacks. It's not only email. They try to approach you through LinkedIn first. They try, like, it's not going to be obvious. They're going to be 3, 4, 5 rounds before they actually ask you to open a document or click on a link or something. They take their time. It's all automated. It's just the agents. So unfortunately, this is very effective. So education around these things. Misconfiguration as well. We talked about vibe coding. We see every week like a headline about a startup that or a company that tried to vibe code their things with AI and ended up exposing like data online because something wasn't protected properly. From an agent's perspective, it was great. Everything was working. It's been asked to do something and it works. But the devil is in the details, and in this case, like it works a little bit too well and exposed everything. So misconfiguration is a big thing as well. We've got nothing against AI, by the way. It's a great technology, but also a double-edged technology. And compromised access as well. So this is people reusing their accounts and the same password in many different settings, and the account and password got compromised on a service somewhere, but unfortunately they reused that somewhere else. Attackers find that, and then away they go with admin access or whatever access they can get. So we still see a lot of that. So what can we do for that? So I mentioned identity protection, super important. MFA, like you just have to, like this is really, really important now. Mention using unique passwords too. Don't reuse the same passwords, always use different ones. Separate accounts as well. So people will try to phish the email address that they can find. But if you have separate accounts for your really highly elevated actions, that really makes a lot more difficult for like a few classes of attacks that suddenly are not possible anymore. But if you use your Yahoo account to manage your AWS admin privileges or your HR system, your bank transfers, etc., it's much more likely that you're going to get compromised. So use separate accounts. Information protection, obviously important. We mentioned before, like some of these scenarios, these companies couldn't recover because the backups were gone. So protecting the information, that means understanding who's accessing it, limiting who can access that, but also like really good backups. And we call that 3-to-1 rule. So it's 3 copies of the data in 2 different locations, one of them offline. Like that's the gold standard for good backups. The guys at CodeSecure, for example, they did have backup, but it was sitting just next to the production systems. So when attackers got access to the production system, they also had access to the backups. So everything was gone just the same. So like you have to separate these things. So patch things, so it's still important, like keep patching these things, your devices, your applications, etc. Things are going fast now, and they're going to go even faster with the new AI models that are going to discover things even faster, at even greater scale. So Like, be good at patching things. Like, it's really important. Change control important, especially vibe coding as well. Don't let your agents like full access to everything without reviewing what they do. They will make mistakes, just like any junior dev would do somewhere. It's okay, but it's your job to keep an eye on these agents and make sure that they don't make mistakes that are too costly. And awareness and training. So these things are not always easy. It's important that we explain why it's risky, what scenarios are risky, what scenarios we want to try to avoid and mitigate, and where it's acceptable to take risks as well. Like, with startups, we don't have unlimited budgets and time. We have to be efficient and very effective. And it's okay to cut corners at times, but understand when it's okay and when it's probably not. Cool, so now, ISO 27001. So this is a standard that's been established in my hometown of Geneva, and the ISO 27000 is the cybersecurity. They've got, as you can probably tell from the numbers, they have like a lot of these different standards. So the 27000 series is the one that deals with security. It tries to be really high level. It talks about governance. It talks about making sure that cybersecurity is addressed at the board level, executive level. It's not like an IT problem. It's not like a small thing somewhere. It's really a company-wide thing. And it establishes a number of requirements around policies that you should have, questions that you should ask yourself. How do you verify that you're doing well, and how do you improve over time? So that's what the standard says. It's quite high level. It doesn't tell you how, it tells you what you have to do. The second part is 27002. So 27002 is a list of recommended controls that you can use that will help you respond to the requirements of 27001. There's 93 controls in there. You don't have to use them to become 27001 compliant. You emerge on 27001, but might as well use them. They're here for you to use. So I recommend using them usually. And the why doing ISO 27001? So you obviously you can be very secure without having an ISO certification. That's okay. But the ISO certification allows you to provide some assurance to your different stakeholders. Your clients first. If you're trying to sell to B2B and your clients are ISO certified, they have to ensure that the service providers they use, the third parties that they use, follow the same level of security maturity. And the best way for them to do that is to use providers that are also ISO certified. If not, they have to basically assess your posture. And if they screw it up, it's on them. So they won't do that. So this really helps open doors. Like, I know of some clients who've got ISO 27001. They won't touch providers if they don't have ISO. Like, you won't even hear about those clients. They won't even address you. And the other thing is, like, during the sales cycles, we know they can be slow and they can derail easily and quickly. So any reason for them to derail should be avoided at all costs. And so during the sales cycle, there's going to be a point where the security guy is going to start asking questions about security. If you can give them an ISO certification, question gone, like, next step. If you can't, then you have to go through a whole rigmarole of thousands of questions, and it's long, and there's all changes that they just abandon, or it just delays things a lot. So it makes your life easier. So now, timeline and cost. It really depends. So preparation time, 3 to 18 months is the kind of brackets that I've seen. It really depends the current maturity, how seriously you take that, the size of the company, and a whole range of other factors. So it's really hard to tell in advance. But the sooner you start, the easier it will be. That I can guarantee. in terms of the way it works, so once you're ready, you can go for the actual certification. 2 steps to the certification. The first step is they look at what you pretend you do on paper, and you tell them, look, we've got all these great policies, this is great, look, we do all this is good, and they look at this and say, okay, good enough on paper. And then is the hard part, then there's the evidence collection part. So they're going to go and say, okay, so you told me you have offline backups, so go and show me those offline backups, like I want to see them somewhere. You tell me you do awareness training for your staff. Okay, I want to talk to 3 staff and I want to know what they know. That sort of stuff. So they can push quite hard on some of these questions. So this is the first year. Then the second and the third year is just a quick assessment. So really a few questions. Maybe if they had some notes and some recommendations on the first year, they'll test you on that and see if you've improved those or not. Or they'll cherry pick a few things they know tend to fail. And they'll look at these points. Year 2 is the same, and then year 4 is basically back to year 0. So you get the chance to do a full audit again. Yay. By like 4 years later, you probably have changed, like things have probably changed, so you should have updated your policies, you should have reviewed a whole lot of that, probably 3 times the size, like $1 trillion company by now, so things are obviously different at that point. In terms of cost, so again, like this can be quite viable depending on how you do it. You don't need tools, for example. You can do that with spreadsheets and everything you want, like text documents and markdown files if you want. Or you can use one of the gazillion options that are out there to help you with tracking those requirements, tracking the evidence collection, etc. And the audit itself costs money as well. So it can only be done by companies that have been accredited by like ISO to become an ISO accreditor. It's a complex process. I, for example, can help companies become ISO certified, but I cannot rubber stamp the certification. I can only get you to the door, but like someone else has got to let you in, because I don't have the actual accreditation for that. It's super costly. As an independent, it's impossible to get. I mean, it's just not financially viable. So big companies do that. There's a handful in Australia and many more overseas. And there's obviously a cost internally. So there are things that you'll have to do, policies you have to implement, things you'll have to change, backups you'll have to revisit, access you'll have to review, etc. So that takes time as well. Like if you're organized and if you automate as much as you can, it's not that onerous, but it still needs to be done. Now, in terms of tips, I mentioned that really briefly before, but start early. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything just from day 0. But if you start slowly adopting some of these recommendations, by the time you have clients that are starting to push back on using your platform because you're not ISO certified, then you can flick that switch and get certified much faster because you've already done 80% of the job, right, for a fraction of the effort. Define the scope wisely as well. So ISO, you determine what you want to test. It's not about the entire company. For example, if you have 3 different platforms, you can certify just one. And so that's the one that's going to be certified and not like everything else. So pick and choose the scope that's as narrow as possible for what you need it to be so that it's easier. Assess the risk wisely as well. It's all based on risk. So if you have a certain risk appetite that you've determined and your board is happy with and everybody's happy with, right? If you have areas which, no matter what happens, are below that risk appetite, you don't really need to worry about them. You don't really need to have controls for them. For example, like in this day and age, like the physical aspects of ISO are interesting because most of the time they don't really matter anymore. You host on AWS, Azure, or wherever, so that physical part of the servers and stuff is done here. You don't really print sensitive information. You don't really have anything like the data is all on laptops and like encrypted and whatnot. So the physical location where you work doesn't matter too much. And so suddenly, there's a whole section on, in the ISO around physical location and protection. You can basically just write off by saying, by explaining why it's not a risk for you and job done. Right? So you can really play with these things. Use the ISO controls I mentioned that already. Leverage tools. So as I said, you can use spreadsheets and you can use whatever you want. But using tools will really help not forget evidence collection, organize things. ISO is like a million small things. And the difficulty is not in each of these individually. It's really trying to see the big picture and organize things. And most people get stuck into that because they're overwhelmed by the number of small things. Having a tool will help you and guide you through that. So I don't have any tool in particular to recommend. There's a ton out there. There are some tools that are not good out there. There are some tools that are stupidly expensive out there as well. But depending on the use case, the type of company, just ask me and I can give you a few names as well. Collect evidence as well. So a lot of people get caught on that as well. So ISO is really strong. This whole second part is about evidence. Like we want to make sure that you actually do what you say you do. And so collecting evidence takes time. It's not something you can do 3 days before the audit and you're like, oh gosh, we need to quickly collect evidence. You need to do quarterly reviews for access to like highly sensitive systems, for example. You can't do quarterly reviews once a year. It doesn't work that way. So you need to do these things. And again, that's where tools can help you by reminding you, you need to do an access review. And an access review is a 5-minute exercise most of the time, right? You just have to show that you've done it. Is Joe, Bob, and Hamid still need access to this system? Yes, check, done, access review done. Like that's literally what you need to do, and that's all. But again, all these little things, like if you're not organized, you're going to mess up, because I did a lot of time. So I'm learned. So collect evidence. Factor in the effort. Like I said before, like there's a lot of things that are involved. I've talked about some of the technical controls, but there are also a lot of organizational controls. So you still need to organize a few things at the board and executive level. You need to evidence that you've taken that seriously in your company by having one of the directors responsible for that. You need to know that you talk about it. You need to potentially provide minutes for meetings showing that you've addressed the questions, etc. You need to show that you've got proper funding. You can't go and do ISO and nominate a junior somewhere in IT and say, you're responsible for ISO and hope it'll work. Like any auditor would look at that and be like, no, sorry, like this person has no weights, not enough skills, not enough budgets. That's not acceptable, and they'll fail you. So it needs to be taken seriously. And so that takes a bit of time because you need to get everybody on board. Keep things simple and actionable. Like this, if you look at ISO 27002, all the controls, they apply whether you're a huge bank or a small startup. The difference is what these controls are. Like, you still need to deal with backups for a huge bank, and you still need to deal with backups on a small startup. But on a small startup, it's going to be much easier. Like, the process will be simpler. It'll be a lot faster. Try to deal with backups at ANZ, I can tell you. I've tried. This is a funny game. So startups have to do the same things, but they're much easier. And you need to keep things simple. Like, you don't need to overdo it and make fancy documents and policies that no one's ever going to read. That's not the point. You're not judged on the number of lines of your policies. You're judged about around whether they cover the right things and if you do what they say you should do. Right. And yeah, as I mentioned before, it's not an IT project. Like all the companies I've worked with who sort of nominated someone in IT and didn't do it, it didn't fail, but it's horrible. Because you're constantly grinding, because you're trying to get people to change their habits, but you're just the IT guy somewhere. You just can't get there. So you really, it's like Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill. It's really tough. So that's my biggest advice here. Like, get the leadership buy-in in startups. Like, if you're small, like, hopefully, like, it's easy. Hopefully the CEO or whoever is convinced that it's a good idea and will give you enough time and a little budget to do it. But that's particularly interesting when things grow, like at scale-ups level. Like, I've worked with clients, they reach that level. Clients are pressuring, the sales teams are pressuring to get ISO because the clients are asking for it, and it's slowing down sales and it's blocking some. Someone decides we need to do it, the CFO, whoever is responsible for sales, but the CEO doesn't really believe in the idea and says it's going to, like, or the CTO is like, oh, that's going to take too much time from my resources, and like, this is going to get really difficult to implement. So get the leadership buy-in, make them understand why it's important, why in the end of the day it's definitely worth the money and the effort, and you'll get better results out of that certification after. All right, that's me. I wanted to make it reasonably short and quick so we can go through a lot of questions. If anyone wants to see the documents, what they look like, the actual ISO documents, come and see me. I've got them here. I can't give them to you because they're all copyrighted and everything, but I have them. And I guess if you have any sort of questions, now is a good time.
Thank you, Olivier. Any questions in the room? I'll run the mic. Yeah.
Thanks for the talk. Just putting ISO aside for 1 second, because that's a big thing. Just simple stuff we can do as startups. Emails, right? So whenever I do a sensitive email, like I send myself a password, I encrypt it. So that I'm just wondering, can people intercept emails and read them? So it's good to encrypt. What's your?
Yeah. So the reason it's good to encrypt any sensitive information you send is not so much in transit. It's more someone compromise your email inbox, and then they just look at the emails that are there and they find a trove of passwords. And it happens a lot. Like, emails are really, really important to protect for those kinds of reasons, a lot of secrets. But also, if you have someone's email, you can probably go to most websites, ask for a password reset, and he'll happily send you a new password. You control the email, you receive the new password, and you basically compromise this person, like all the accounts that they have. So yeah.
Yep.
Now, regarding passwords, you're saying don't use the same password, don't use common passwords. People can guess them. So often they have automated password suggestions. Or is there a place we can get our passwords stored? A bank person online said just write them on a piece of paper. But what's your opinion?
So my opinion is passwords are not so important because I absolutely recommend using MFA, right? So weak passwords are fine because what's going to happen is most of the time, if someone is trying to brute force and guess your password, like, the account's going to be locked out eventually, right? So that's sort of fine. And what you really want is to have MFA here to protect you. So we have good tools now for that. So more than complex passwords, unique passwords is probably a better way to go. You also have password managers now, and so they're pretty good. And I use one, and definitely recommend using one as well. There are some free ones out there that are pretty good. So passwords manager are good because they can generate random passwords and basically insert them in the right places at the right time for you. So it's pretty transparent. So password managers, good thing. MFA, good thing.
Thank you. Other questions? Ahmed?
Thank you very much for the presentation first. I'm very actually wondering about security from day one. And couple of questions about the passwords again. You notice there is a Google passwords for Google Chrome. Okay, this is like a vault. Another one for Edge. How secure are they? Number one is how secure.
It's better than nothing.
But if they get cracked, all your password will be cracked once.
Yeah, so like this is all, yeah, absolutely. So this is a great question. So password managers means like centralizing all the passwords in one place, making great effort here to make sure that this software is secured, adding more layers. But obviously, if this one gets compromised, then you're in trouble. So this has happened in the past. LastPass, for example, was one of the well-known password managers, and they've been compromised, but there were additional layers of controls in there to protect the passwords. So I'd say that you're probably better off having a password manager, even with the additional risk of that being compromised, because the likelihood is extremely low, rather than not using a password manager and the likelihood of you screwing something up at some point is super high, again, from experience. Yes, Chrome Password Manager or Safari or the whole iCloud ecosystem is a good place as any, yeah.
Okay, second question. As you know, I'm vibe coding, okay? And I'm using an application called Replit. I'm not sure if you're aware about it or not. Replit has special tools and agents just specialized in security. And they claim, okay, they have the highest level of security in the market. They are $9 billion company. And I think I should trust them, especially with the level of the security. And let's say you need to meet ISO. If I tell the agent, please meet the ISO 27001, it's gonna go to all the libraries and meet this or no? Thank you.
It will help you. Like those tools are getting better and better at security. I think everyone realizes now that like just creating codes that looks good is not like the whole picture. There's a lot of like non-functional requirements. Like, is that going to be like solid? Is going to work over time? As soon as you have more than 3 clients in your dev environment, is that going to work? And security is one of these aspects as well. So all the companies like Lovable, Replit, and all the others, they're all trying to now have agents that are specialized into security and help you secure software. And it's definitely like improving. I don't think they're there yet. I think there's a lot of like logic mistakes that they make that can't easily fix, like things that they don't fully understand because they don't understand the full picture of what you do. So from them, like locally, it looks like everything is working, but when all the pieces of the puzzle get together, there's some obvious flaws in there. So it's not like a sure shot just to have these agents tell you it's fine. As for ISO, as I said before, like this is much more than like just one application and one system. Like it's obviously good. There are some good tools out there to tell you if you've configured your AWS environment in a way that's compliant with ISO, because you've enabled encryption, you've enabled backup and stuff, and it's going to check a few boxes in there, and that's good. But ISO goes way beyond that in terms of like verifying the controls. But it'll get you a step in the right direction. And I think eventually these tools will get to a point where we can trust them more.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Olivier. Merci beaucoup. Just a question around the... Look, we used to work in government and we got sick of all the bureaucracy and all the red tape, and that's why we started our business. And then as the CEO, CTO, we've been like configuring the Microsoft, secure score, got it up to 88%, which is twice as secure to companies our size. But it got to a point where what is recommending us to do constrains our functionality so much that I was like, I'm becoming what I hated in the past, that like I can't get anything done. We can't even use Notion because the data is stored in overseas. So how do you balance functionality, security versus operations where I'm trying to get stuff done and I just can't get there?
Yep, no, that's a great question. So it's all about being pragmatic and it's all about risk management. Like, what you want is you've got a certain risk threshold. You like for my company, like I'm okay to take that level of risk, and ISO will help you and ask you to do that sort of stuff and say, okay, I'm fine to lose up to $1 million because we've got that. So if risks are not if the risk created are costing me less than $1 million, then you're fine. You can take them, for example. And same thing with all these systems. Like they're going to, in AWS or Microsoft 365 as well, it's like enabling MFA, enabling this, enabling that. But in some situation, that's not a problem because like break glass accounts is a good example that comes often. So break glass accounts is an account that you sort of keep on the side. You never use it. But just in case someone compromises your account and you can't get back in because they changed the password, you use the break glass account to gain access back. So break glass accounts are a good thing to have. But what happens is you don't want too many protections on these break glass accounts because the other reason you might need them is you've been changing policies and configuration. You make it too secure and you can't log in back yourself. So that break glass account is a bit of an account for that. Because you specifically organize that account so it's weaker because you want to make sure you can log back in, you're not going to meet the requirements for the secure score. You're not going to have MFA on that account. You're probably not going to have all the policies applied to that account. So everything will blink red. And that's why in there you have a possibility to accept the risk and you make a quick mention of like, this account doesn't have this, doesn't have MFA, but that's the break glass account. It can only be used from this IP address. And so you've got other controls for that and you risk accept. And that basically from a Microsoft 365 perspective, it'll bump the score back up. But you don't have to go to 100%. I don't know anyone at 100%. You'll probably never get there or
That's
get crazy
reassuring.
trying.
Thank you. We'll take one or two more questions, just conscious of time, and I still want you to connect to network afterwards. Otherwise, yeah, Anton, I've got a question ready too.
And what are the legal requirements in Australia for this compliance? Because there's European or is it like worldwide?
So, yeah, great question. So ISO is international, so it's recognized everywhere. You might have heard of SOC 2 as well. That's more American, and like the scope is slightly different. So all the big vendors in the US will have SOC 2, but like the rest of the world tends to use ISO, and it's not legal. It's just an agreed like framework by the international, whatever S stands for, ISO organization, on how to do things. And that just offers the possibility to then compare apples for apples between different companies. But you can use it anywhere, and people can decide to recognize it or not. It is, though, valid when you need to meet some requirements for the government, for example, and ask you for your security practice. If you have ISO, that will definitely, like for the essential 8 and stuff, it'll clear all that stuff as well because it's sort of higher in terms of like assurance. So you can basically use that as a way to prove your current security posture.
Amazing. I think we'll take one more question. Yep.
I'll stay around a while after if you have
Yeah,
questions.
thank you.
Come see me.
Lewis?
All right, thank you for the talk. In a startup environment, we have limited resources. So, as we'd all know, in our tech team, for instance, we don't have a security expert. That kind of falls on me. What do you recommend for like myself and our team to stay ahead of all of the risks and security vulnerabilities, especially with AI developing? And then, how do you also recommend us to upskill non-technical members of the team and make sure that there's continuous education?
So thanks for the plug. Work with me is one of the answers. It's tricky. So because there's so much and you can get distracted on things that are not important or not important yet. So, and AI is just making things so much more complex because it's a whole new range of risks that are coming your way. That's, like, honestly, that's the kind of advice and service that I try to provide to clients. And when I work on a fractional basis, like a few hours a week with startups, that's exactly why. Like, that's to help that. So that someone like you can say, okay, where are we at? What should we do? There's this new thing I heard, like, are we cool? Should we do something about it? So that's exactly what I do. Also, the second line, like the little BNR Partners is launching the BNR stack there. So a friend of mine also have seen like some of the problems that our clients have around this space. And so we're sort of toying around that, like having something to help startups do that at like really cheap costs, but still like with good value, hopefully. So eventually we'll launch that too.
Great, thank you. Round of applause for Olivier. That wraps up our session. This session has been recorded. It will be provided on our YouTube channel, and a future newsletter is being sent out, and so will the slides. So thank you again, Olivier.